Hey guys, this is Lisa, aka You Brought Me Home, aka 80's Child, coming at you with another Charmed review. Charmed 2018, Season 1, Episode 4, Exorcise Your Demons. I'm sorry this is coming a little late. This week has been absolutely insane. Between me having to work the polls on Tuesday and then having this eye issue. If this is a little puffy to you, I think something bit me on my eye, caused me to look like someone punched me in the face. But anyway, a very crazy and busy week. So it took me a little longer than I expected to get this video out. Okay, so straight into the review. I know I've been a little harsh with the first 3 episodes of the show. And I'm not going to apologize for that fact. I genuinely have concerns about the show and the direction that it's going in. But I was really still hoping that there would be some positiveness about the show. And with episode 4, I feel like, well, there are still some things that I feel like they need to address. I feel like they're starting to turn a corner with the direction that the show is heading in. It was the first episode I've seen so far where there was actual emotional weight. And it's the first episode I've seen where it feels to me as though the girls finally understand and really grasp the gravity of what they have inherited and how important it is in their lives, especially Maggie. Because I think we can all agree in the first 3 episodes, yeah, Macy was doing some annoying shit that we really would rather her do, but Mel and Maggie were at the point where we just wanted to beat them about the head with a 2x4. But this episode was the first one I've seen so far where the girls actually seem to express real emotion about how important the craft is in their lives and have some sort of understanding of why their mother did what she did and just how powerful she truly was and how much and the kind of legacy that she's left behind for them to follow. Because previous to this, they like I said before, they treated the magic as if it was a means to an end, and it never felt to me like they had any respect for it. It didn't feel to me like they were letting it infuse their lives. There was nothing magical there. It was like they were just using it because it was there and it was convenient. It didn't feel like they had any respect for it. This is the first episode so far where it seems like they're really starting to understand how important that part of their lives is. So this episode follows up from the end of episode 3. Angela Wu, who was the Angela Wu is the young college student who initially lodged the sexual assault complaint against Professor Thane, who we all know was vanquished in episode 1. She was the one who went to the girl's mother, the head of the women's studies department, for help. As a matter of fact, the very first scene in this episode it's a flashback, which kind of gives us a little more background about what exactly went on with this whole sexual assault complaint, and it gives us a little more deeper and emotional look into who Angela Wu is. Because right now, all we know of her is that she was a coma girl, and she woke up from a coma, and now she's possessed. But it's hard to emotionally invest in a character when they don't have any background, no depth. This flashback, even though it was short, gave us much more of an emotional understanding of who Angela Wu was as a person. She was obviously very upset by this attack. She was scared. She felt alone, and Marisol and Mel were trying to help her to understand that no matter what choice she made, whether it was to report him or not, that they would have her back, that she was not alone, that they were there for her. And you could see that she was very scared. She was obviously very upset. She wasn't sure if what she was doing was the right thing. She wasn't sure how it was going to end. And she felt very alone. And that's why Marisol and Mel were trying to help her to understand that they were there for her 110%, no matter what choice she ultimately made. She breaks down in tears in Mel's mother's arms because she's so frightened of what the repercussions could be. She's frightened about what happened to her. She's scared about what the professor will do, about what the review board at the college, what people will think. I mean, it's all typical behavior that a victim goes through. And I applaud the show for being very forthright and accurate in showing what it is like for someone who is victimized in that way. It gave us such a much greater depth and understanding of who Angela Wu was as a person. And it helped us to connect with her soul, like connect with her on an emotional level. It would be harder for us to want the girls to save her and exorcise this demon from her if we didn't have that emotional connection. And that flashback gave us that connection. It made us want to fight alongside the girls to save this innocent person's life. I mean, you remember I also said over the last 3 episodes that one thing that worried me was that the girls didn't seem to care about innocent people. Like, they were exorcising demons, but part of what made Charmed so special was it wasn't just about the demons. It was also saving innocent people's lives. Some of the best episodes that the original Charmed ever did had nothing to do with exorcising. I mean, yes, of course, they had to vanquish demons and warlocks and things, but that wasn't always the sole focus. Some of the best episodes that they ever did focused on saving people. Like the episode in season 1 where Piper could, for the first time they found out that they could see ghosts, and this Chinese kid was stuck between the worlds. He wasn't able to cross over because he'd been murdered, and Piper made an emotional connection with this guy, and she helped to solve his murder. And it was very difficult for her when he finally had to pass over, because she wound up falling for him, but obviously she couldn't be with him because he was already dead. And then there was the one when Phoebe, as an empath, made an emotional psychic connection to another empath like 150 years in the past, and they were able to help, keep him from dying, and also prevent the town that they lived in from being in a time loop, because the people in the town just stood back and watched this poor guy be murdered right in front of their faces. And it was very emotionally gripping, because it was less about the demons and more about people. Those are some of the best episodes I think that the original show did, and I think that if this show focuses on that equally with the vanquishing of the demons, I think it will greatly improve. That's why I kind of liked this episode more than the others, because it was more focused on Angela than it was just about the demons. So in this episode, we meet an elder named Charity. Okay, my only issue with this episode is that I have no issue with Charity herself as a person. My issue is them calling her an elder. Elders are not elder witches. I feel like the show has not done its homework as far as Charmed rules. Elders are white lighters who have been chosen to ascend to elderhood. Remember, Leo was a white lighter. keeps the phone from falling. When a massive amount of white lighters were killed at the beginning of season 5, they chose him to ascend to become an elder because there were so few white lighters left. The point being, elders are white lighters. Pretty simple. And they definitely don't have jobs and careers. That's not what they do. They're there to advise white lighters and look out for witches, but in a much bigger way. And they're kind of oversee the whole magical world in a sort of way. If they wanted to talk about elder witches and include some sort of witch hierarchy, I have no problem with that. I actually think that's really good. Because that was one thing about the original Charm that I kind of took issue with, was the fact that they never really went into the dynamics of witchcraft. Yeah, you had the spells and the book and whatever, but they never went into the hierarchies and the ceremonies and the real nitty-gritty of witchcraft. I feel like they were trying to stay away from that part of it because they wanted to make it less realistic. They never really took themselves too seriously, and they were afraid that if they made it too realistic, that it would not go over too well with viewers. And you have to remember, I don't know how many of you guys are old enough to remember this, but at the time that Charmed started getting big, there were a lot of things going on in the news about vampires and gaming and Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. And so I think they were trying to make it less like what was going on in reality. So have the overtones of witchcraft there, but still make it more Hollywood than realistic. So I don't mind the fact that they want to introduce some sort of hierarchy. I just don't want it to be equated with the elders, because that is something totally separate. I actually liked the fact that they brought in somebody who knew their mother, who could give them some of the answers that they were seeking. Because so far, now that they've found out they're witches, they haven't really tried to find out why their mother didn't tell them in the first place. And they haven't tried to research their family line to find out, which side of their family they get this from. They don't seem to care too much about their background and about who their mother really was. And this woman, Charity, even though she only really talked to Macy, she did give some good insight about who Marisol was. Macy was having some issues in this episode because, again, even though she's taken one step forward with Galvin, it feels always like for every one step forward, it's 2 steps back. Galvin is trying to ask her out, trying to bring the relationship forward step by step, but Macy is still a little nervous about taking any steps just yet. She doesn't seem to be too emotionally invested, and I guess Galvin is trying to figure out why. And according to Macy, Galvin is wondering if she's emotionally stunted, and she's not necessarily emotionally stunted. She just learned over time growing up to put her emotions to the side and, be as analytical as possible to save herself. And I guess to other people that comes off as being cold when she's not really. This is one of the things that Harry keeps telling her, that she's overthinking her magic too much. And it's getting in the way of her doing her spells properly. That she needs to just let it flow. This is one of the things that they were very adamant about in the original show, that their magic is fueled by emotion. And because Macy is so closed off emotionally and so scientifically analytic, she overthinks everything, and then the spell won't go off as quite the way that it's supposed to. I mean, it makes her strong as a telekinetic, but doing the other spells she has a hard time with because she doesn't just let it flow. And even her telekinesis is kind of choppy at times because she's a perfectionist. So Harry's telling her that she has to just let it flow, Let the emotions in, don't be afraid of them. And eventually by the end of the episode she does, because she gets quite a bit of insight from Charity. It lets the viewer know that despite what happened in episode 2, that the need for answers with Macy is still very much there. She still wants to know why her mother abandoned her, why her mother never called her, never tried to find her. And, she still needs those answers. So Charity tells her that her mother was one of the strongest witches she had ever known, and that she was a really amazing person who loved her children very much. Now, she could not explain why Marisol gave Macy up. I don't think she knew. That was something that Marisol kept to herself. But the pain of that was significant. So significant that she actually asked Charity to perform a spell on her to remove her sadness so that she would not have to feel the pain, because it was so great. And it took a lot out of them both, because this is the type of spell that is very dangerous. So at least Macy has the knowledge that her mother loved her very, very much. And in this episode, we actually get an answer to a question that I know that most people were starting to wonder. I mean, in the old Charmed, we knew what the sisters' powers were, but we also knew what Graham's power was. She had telekinesis like Prue. And then we found out what Patty's power, their mother's power, was. Like Piper, she could freeze and blow things up. We finally find out what Marisol's power was. Marisol had the power of premonition, which I feel like is a little bit of a hat tipping to Phoebe's original power from the old show. She apparently had a premonition that this demon would have to be, that her daughters would exorcise this demon from this girl, and that it had to happen the way she saw it. And I'm wondering, if she had this premonition, how did she not have a premonition of her own death? But then you have to remember, for seers, it's not always that simple. And seers generally don't have premonitions of their own demise. That's just not how it works. Things like that get very murky. So Angela Wu's come out of her coma. Everyone is really surprised. Oh my God. She's still in the attic, chained up, and her powers are growing. What they realize is that when she attempts to grab one of the girls, instead she grabs a rat that's scurrying across the floor. And Jesus, clean your fucking attic. Like, really? Gross. And when she touches it, the rat just disintegrates, which means that Angela, or the demon, has developed the power to kill. And if they're not careful, she's going to disintegrate the chains and everything else around her. So they can't even touch her. They can't go near her. Now, the last couple days that she's been up there, the girls have been watching her in shifts. And Maggie is still doing the stupid bullshit college shit. I have no problem with her wanting to be focused on her studies, but I'm just getting tired of her pushing away what's important for this fucking sorority that I could give a shit less about. Priorities, Maggie. Fucking priorities. So apparently Maggie's midterm is coming up soon, and she's supposed to read Dante's Inferno, and she hasn't read it all. She's pretty much reading Cliff's Notes, and she's afraid she's going to fail. Mel tells her, well, as long as she passes her midterm, she should be fine. But Maggie is freaking out that she's not going to be able to do it because they're spending too much time dealing with this demon. And when she's in class, apparently she finds out that her sorority sister and the boyfriend, Parker, who she obviously has a thing for, also are in the class. And when the girl finds out that Maggie's having some issues with the midterm, she graciously offers the services of her boyfriend Parker because he's such a knowledgeable person when it comes to books and reading, and especially Dante, since he read it when he was like in the 6th grade. She graciously offers his services as a tutor, not realizing what, inadvertently is going on between the two of them. And he's like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. I can come over to your place and we can sit and study, sure. But, Maggie's like, no, this is not a good idea. Parker has not seen this coming. He is completely oblivious to what Maggie is feeling. Ugh. So, and on Mel's side of the story, she's still dealing with some issues with Nico. They kind of shelve the whole will she or won't she tell her thing to the side for right now, for a much bigger problem. Angela Wu's parents have reported her missing because she never came home from the Halloween party. So the last place she was at the girl's house. So Nico and her partner, Trip, go over to the house to talk to the girls to find out if they know anything about Angela. And of course, they're trying to make sure that Angela doesn't make any noise because they don't want anybody to hear anything. And of course, she does make noise, but fortunately for them, that's when Charity shows up and diffuses the whole thing by claiming that, oh, that's just my guys upstairs. They're redecorating the attic. I'm so sorry about all the noise. So that was really good of her to diffuse that before things got out of hand. But you could tell, even though Nico is accepting of this explanation, the Trip kind of is like, not so sure. So Trip, throughout this episode, is continuing to investigate them on the sly. He's following the girls around at the school. He's following them at home and wherever they go. And because he feels like they're hiding something. And this kind of reminds me of what happened in season 2 of the original Charmed. There was, I can't remember if that guy was a FBI agent or a cop. There were so many. It's hard to remember. The first one was a cop because he worked with Daryl at the police department after Andy died. Or was that season? No, that was season 3. I'm sorry. But in season 2, they were dealing with a law enforcement officer, I'll just call him that, who was certain that they were hiding something. And in the episode where Prue met the Angel of Death for the first time, which is one of their most powerful episodes, she spent the entire episode trying to prevent this man from dying. The Angel of Death was there to come for this guy, and she's like, no, I'm not going to let you kill him. He's an innocent. And even though he was cottoning on to who they were and was going to expose them, she was going out of her way to make sure that he didn't die. But at the end of the episode, he died. And she couldn't prevent it. And it tore her up because she felt like she had failed him. But the real message of the episode was for her to have to understand that death is not something that you can necessarily prevent. It's a natural course of life. Now, at that point in the show, death had meaning. Death was important. And it had emotional weight. Of course, I'm sure anybody who's watched Charmed from beginning to end knows that as the series went on, that death became completely meaningless. Even when the Angel of Death showed up in season 8 to take Wyatt, it was still to take Leo, it was still fucking meaningless because they managed to save his life anyway. So, but the point is, this is not the first time that the girls have dealt with law enforcement officers coming after them or finding them out. It happened in season 7 with the female FBI agent who got killed. It happened in season 3, and the only reason that he didn't come after them again was because they saved his life. Yeah, he saw them call their mother or their grandmother from beyond the grave, but then a demon came after him and tried to kill him, and Leo saved his life. So, yeah. He kind of let it go after that. So, it was not surprising to me that they would go this route with Trip. I knew that it wasn't going to be Nico because Nico has too much of a connection with Mel. And I sincerely still hope that Nico doesn't turn into the Andy of the show, because that would really suck. But, because I actually kind of like her relationship with Mel. I think her relationship with Mel gives Mel a more... It humanizes Mel more. It takes away from that, stereotypical, hateful lesbian that they've unfortunately started to portray her as. This is the first episode, in fact, where she hasn't completely insulted Harry from start to finish. She actually compliments him and says that, she's starting to like him. Oh my God. Maybe they're finally starting to crawl her out of this, feminazi stereotype. I really hope that that's true, because she's a much better person for it when she's not acting stereotypical. Believe me. When she's actually has emotional weight to her character, and her character is more round than this flat, two-dimensional, man-hating lesbian stereotype. Some little hints of that came up in the flashback at the beginning, because she immediately led off with that whole, oh, he's a man, blah, blah, blah. But I've started to see, as the episodes have gone on, that Mel is... It's taking time, baby steps, but she's getting there. I was most impressed, actually, in this episode with Maggie, because Maggie started out only caring about the fraternity and not really giving a shit about the witchcraft, to the point where she was almost getting her sisters killed for it. And at the end of this episode, it seemed like it finally all hit her at once. But there was a reason for that. So, Charity shows up, diffuses the situation with the police, and she tells them that she gives them each a ceremonial dagger and says that when the full moon rises tonight, you need to kill her. Because if you don't, she's going to get too powerful. She's going to break out of her chains, and then she's going to kill everybody. Now that she's developed this power of death, anybody she touches will die. If she gets loose, she has the potential of destroying the entire town. So Harry understands that that's what needs to be done. Macy and Mel kind of get it, but Maggie's like, no, Macy and Maggie get it. No, wait, or was it Maggie? Yeah, Macy and Mel get it, but Maggie's like, no, I'm not going to kill her, because Maggie was the one who was able to telepathically connect with her at the end of episode 3 and realize that she was still in there. She firmly believes that Angela can be saved, that the demon can be exorcised from her body. Charity's like, I understand that you want to save her. She's your friend. But that Angela is no longer with us. She's dead. You have to deal with this demon before it creates chaos. And she puts it upon them, without question, that this demon must be killed. And then she leaves. So the girls talk, and at first they're kind of like, are you sure you know what you're talking about? She's like, yes, of course I know what I'm talking about. I heard her inside that body. She's in there. So Macy has to go to work and Mel has to go to class. So Maggie decides that she's going to go look in the book to try and find some way to, some sort of spell that can reach Angela's soul to prove to Charity that Angela is still alive in there and deserves to be saved. So she manages to find a spell, but the demon is very powerful. She casts the spell and she's able to communicate with Angela for a couple of seconds, but the demon is so strong that eventually it just takes over again. But she's got the proof, because she literally saw Angela's face. She heard her speak words. She knows Angela's in there. She's frightened. She's scared. She wants out. She doesn't know what's going on, but she can tell that the demon is very powerful. So she tells Macy and Mel, look, I'm not going to kill her. I don't care what you say. I saw her face. I know she's there. I want to save her. And fortunately, Macy and Mel believe her. And they decide together as a unit that even though it might not be wise to stand up to an elder, that they're going to do it for Angela's sake. So now they've got to figure out how they're going to exorcise this demon. When they broach this to Harry, at first Harry's like, no, you can't go against an elder. She's an elder. You have to do whatever she says. Now, there is some question as to the relationship between Charity and Harry, because they obviously know each other and have some sort of past, but Harry will not speak of it. I don't know if they were a couple at one point or something, but I'm sure that there will be more discussions about that later. Anyway, Harry is reluctant to go against Charity's final say, but he sees their passion for this point. And as a human being, lighter person, he sees the merit in wanting to save her life. Because Angela would never ask for any of this. Angela was a truly innocent person who all she wanted was for a professor to stop attacking her. And apparently, what we didn't know was that while this whole trial was going on, that she was so upset about what was happening, so emotionally messed up, that she overdosed on drugs. She was like taking drugs to keep herself calm through everything that was going on. And then when the professor got removed from the school, but then he appealed, so when the appeals process was going down, she was having a hard time coping, and she overdosed on drugs, which is what put her into the coma and left her vulnerable to this demon. Mel, in a way, kind of feels responsible for not doing more, I guess, to help her. So that motivates her decision to go along with Maggie. And Macy, after having the conversation with Charity, realizes that, because her reasoning for going along with what Charity is saying, that, analytically it makes sense that, if you think about it like this, you kill one person and save the whole town, or you let her go and the whole town dies. Like, scientifically, you save one person at the expense of the whole town, or you save the whole town at the expense of one person. In her scientific mind, it makes more sense to get rid of one person and save the whole town, logically, which is why she's perceived as being cold and emotionless. But when she has that conversation with Charity about about her mother and about what the lengths that her mother went to remove the sadness from her soul of having to give Macy up, it helps her to understand her mother a bit more. It also helps her to understand herself and to come clean with the fact that she sometimes locks her emotions away to her own detriment. So this time, instead of going with her logic, she decides to go with her gut. And she backs Maggie's play and says, okay, we're going to do this because I feel it's right. So all three of them go up against Harry and say, look, we're not going to kill her. It's just not going to fucking happen. We're going to save her, and we're going to figure out how. So they go to the Book of Shadows. That's the other issue I have with the book, is that they could just blanket ask anything and it turns to a page. It takes out the guesswork. I don't like that. One of the best parts about Charmed was them learning on their own how to vanquish certain demons, them finding spells on their own or creating their own spells. Now they don't even have to do that. It's just ask book question, boop, there. I understand that shows these days want things to happen like this, but I really feel like that's to the detriment of the show. It loses that emotional, it loses qualities when you do that. Everything happens so quick and there's no way to get emotionally invested. There's no way for the girls to grow as characters if they can't learn how to be witches. They don't have to learn anything. They can just ask the book and boom, it's there. How are they going to grow and progress in their craft if they don't learn on their own? They don't figure things out on their own. They either have the book that answers every single question for them, or they got Harry that will tell them what to fucking do. I mean, come on. That's one part of the show that really needs fixing, like with a swiftness. Anyway, so they find there's a blank page, and Maggie knows that this thing can't be just blank. I mean, she asked it a question, it flipped specifically to these pages. So she's trying to figure out what the book is trying to say. But nothing seems to work. And it's not until Macy shows up and the three of them come together as one that the pages actually begin to show. So apparently their mother was the one that wrote this spell. And it's a Santeria-based spell. Thank you, Charmed, for using some non-European based magic for once to go along with the girl's background. Good on you. It's a very complicated, very dangerous spell that their mother wrote. It has a lot to do with the spell that Charity used on Marisol to remove the emotion of sadness from her after Macy was given up. It can only be performed effectively by all three of them using the power of three. And that's when Harry realizes that Marisol saw this coming. She knew this was going to happen. She knew they were going to save this girl because of her premonition power. That's why she wrote this spell for all three of them. She even knew, obviously, that Macy was going to come back. That they were going to find her. So, which makes me wonder, if she knew that much, she knew about Macy and she knew that the girls were going to come together as Power 3 and cast this spell to save their friend. Did she also know about her own death and just let it happen anyway? Because she felt like it had to in order for them to come together as the Power 3, as charmed ones. Because I can't buy that someone as powerful as she is, an elder witch, according to the show's particular set of rules, that she's an elder witch and extremely powerful and royalty, that her powers would not have progressed to the point where she would know or be able to predict or have a vision of her own demise. I have a feeling that issue or that question is going to be raised at some point, now that they know what their mother's power was. is. That question's going to be raised, most definitely. So they show it to Harry, and Harry realizes that they were right, that their mother knew this was going to happen, so he has to support them. They try to hide it from Charity, but it doesn't work. Charity's too smart for that. And they show her the spell in the book, and they kind of use her relationship with their mother as leverage. That, like, you know that she was powerful, and you know that she wouldn't lie when she wrote this. She obviously knew this was going to happen. We have to do this. This is what she wanted. So, against her better judgment, she agrees to go along with it. And Maggie knows just the place to get it done, because the sorority is working on a homecoming float in a warehouse that is empty, so they can do it without having to worry about people getting in the way. So they bring Angela there, and this has got to be the most powerful scene in the whole episode. It takes everything they have to exorcise her, and they almost aren't successful, almost, because Nico's partner Trip winds up following them, as he's been doing the entire episode. There's one scene where they're at the school, and Mel was going to her car, and then Maggie realizes that Trip is following them. So they have to kind of hide behind the car, because they don't want Trip to know where they're going, and the fact that Angela Wu is in the back of the car. The demon is in the car. They had to take her out of the house to make sure that Charity wouldn't kill her. So the whole episode, they're trying to outwit Trip. Trip follows them to the warehouse, and he sees them. He comes upon them performing this exorcism thing, and at first he's pointing his guns at them, thinking that they've done something to her. But I guess it doesn't take too long for him to see Angela's face and to realize that this is way out of his wheelhouse. But he's stuck there, and the demon is so powerful that it winds up throwing him backwards. Fortunately, at the end, it takes everything they've got, but they do manage to save her, and mostly because of Maggie. Angela was too scared to have the strength to confront this demon herself, but Maggie touched her. She was afraid that if she did, she was going to get some sort of impression of the demon itself, and she was afraid of what she would hear. But they said, in order for Angela to calm down, you've got to talk to her, and the only way you can is by touching her. So she was able to communicate with Angela and help her to find the strength to fight against this thing. And eventually they do win, and they're able to exorcise the demon from Angela, and it winds up in a paint can. Unfortunately, they are not without loss, because in the kerfuffle, Trip is killed. And that's the moment right there that changes everything. Yes, they put every ounce of their ability into saving Angela, and that by itself is a big deal, because I think now that helps them to realize the gravity of their ability and the emotional weight behind why what they do is so important, and why their mother wanted them together, and what she truly meant by sisterhood. That their magic is not something to just be used and abused when it's convenient. It is one of the most important aspects of who they are. It's in their blood. It's who they are. It's part of them. And they need to start treating it with respect. And then with Trip dying as a result, this was not the outlook that they wanted. And all three of them were truly upset by what had happened. But the most profound effect is with Maggie. It almost felt like she completely just 180'd. She went from this vapid and vain, I don't give a fuck about anybody but rushing this group, blah blah blah, to, oh my god, this guy just died. We literally watched someone die, an innocent human die, although he might not be as innocent as they think. So Mel has to explain to Nico what happened, and apparently, well, Charity told the girls to get lost so they wouldn't be caught, and she said she would take care of it. But what Mel didn't realize was how she took care of it. She made it look like Trip had hung himself because he was the killer. She put the whole thing on an innocent man. An innocent person. Which I don't like. And I don't think the girls, Macy and Maggie don't know about it, but Mel does. And I don't think, as much as Mel might not like men, I don't think she liked this. One, because it wasn't right, because Trip was innocent, supposedly. And two, because Nico was totally devastated, which was hard to wrap my head around, because they didn't really have a lot of screen time between the two of them, so you didn't really know what their relationship was like. So it was hard to get emotionally invested with Trip. It was hard to get him. It was hard to understand why Nico was so broken up about it. Yes, they were partners. I'm assuming they were friends, but you didn't really know what the depth of their relationship was. So they never showed it on the screen. They were only together in a couple of scenes, mostly related to work. So you never really got an impression of what their relationship was like beyond work. If they were really close friends, or or whatever. There was no emotional investment in that. At least when Andy died at the end of season 1, you saw the impact that had on Daryl. Andy was Daryl's partner and best friend, and you saw it throughout season 1 how close that they were and how much it impacted Daryl when Andy died. Visually saw 2 eyes. But in this, you don't see that. So it kind of was a little head scratcher. Why is she freaking out like this over Trip? I mean, I understand she'd be upset that her partner was dead and that the police are blaming him for being a murderer and, oh my God, all this. I mean, emotionally, I get that. But she seemed just a little too broken up. It was just hard to understand, because we had not been able to see what kind of relationship that they had. So it was hard to have that emotional investment in her grief. It's one of the other things about the show that they lack. It's so like this, as I said before, that there's no room for emotional development between the characters. They really need to work on that with a swiftness. Because it's to the show's detriment when you don't have enough, when the characters don't have enough time to emotionally develop, because it's all plot, 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 plot. That's what made shows like Once Upon a Time suffer towards the end. And as much as I'm a fan of Once, even I can say that when you sacrifice development for plot, that's problems. Serious problems. And they've already started doing it from the jump, which is not good. There's been very little actual character development. As a matter of fact, this episode, four episodes in, it's the first time I've actually seen some real development. Because in the other ones, they develop a teensy bit, one step forward, and then the next episode, 2 steps back. 1 foot forward, 2 steps back. This is the first one where I actually feel like something permanent has changed with them. 1, because of what they had to go through to save their friend, and 2, because an innocent person died as a result of what they did. And I know it wasn't truly their fault, but they feel like it's their fault. And that death is going to resonate with them for a long time to come. And I hope it does. Death on a show should not be an inconsequential thing. It should have meaning and true emotional weight. Even for a show that's based in magic. But at the very last scene in the episode, well, before this, okay, I need to mention what goes on with Maggie and Parker. While they're in the process of exorcising the demon, they hear a noise from outside. At first they think it's Trip, but when they go out there, Maggie goes to check and she realizes it's Parker. He was hiding some firecrackers there, pulling some sort of college prank. He didn't realize that anybody was there. Blah, blah, blah. Long story short, they wind up kissing. And Maggie knows it was not a good idea. Bad, 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 because he's dating her sorority sister, the head of the group, and the last thing she needs is for her to find out that she's messing around with her boyfriend. She knows, as much as she likes Parker, that it was the bad choice. And it's pretty obvious that Parker likes her too, but he's like not... Everything's happened so fast, they don't give him enough time to react. So the next day, after everything's said and done, he shows up at the house with his binder of study notes for Dante's Inferno, because as promised, he was going to help her study. Even after kissing her, knowing he's got a girlfriend, that tells you right there that he does like her. Otherwise, he might not have shown up, or he may have called her and said, maybe this is not a good idea. But he showed up anyway. And Maggie says to him, this is the first time I've actually heard her speak from a real emotional place. She says to him that it's not a good idea, that what happened between them was a mistake, and that she's already talked to her professor and he gave her an extension so she could study on her own and really work hard towards passing this midterm without any outside help, because she knows that being alone with Parker's not a good idea. And Parker's like, huh? So he's confused. I'm sure that storyline is not done yet. There will more than likely be a fallout, because I don't think Parker's going to let her go just yet. He seems like a really nice guy. And he seems like he'd be really good for her if it wasn't for the fact that he was dating somebody else who... God! I don't know why they paired him with her, because they don't seem... She does not seem like his type at all. I think it just wound up... They just did it that way to sow the seeds of conflict, I guess. But he seems like a really decent guy. But I don't know how that's going to wind up. We shall see how that goes. So at the very last scene, Charity takes the paint can back to wherever it is the elders are, I guess. And as she's going into the elevator, someone who looks suspiciously like Trip walks into the elevator with her. And I'm surprised that she doesn't react. I mean, she saw Trip die. And he does some mojo on her. And they wind up switching the paint cans. I'm guessing without her knowledge, because he does some sort of mojo jojo on her magic voodoo thing. He's controlling her mind or whatever, and he convinces her to switch the paint cans. And then he steps off the elevator and she's left in there by herself. Dun dun dun! Okay. Is this going to be one of the? Is this going to be like a retread of what happened at the end of Charm season 1, where Prue finds out that her boss is actually a demon from hell, and he was trying to kill the Charmed One so he could go back to hell or whatever? I don't know, but it seems very reminiscent of what happened at the of the season 1 baddie. Anywho, well, that is Charmed episode 4. I will definitely say it was a vast improvement over what I've seen so far. As I have said, there are still some issues that I feel like they need to deal with. I can only assume that as time goes on, that hopefully they will deal with it. I feel like if they do, and they do their homework just a little bit more to make the rules of the show more concise and more sensible, that I think the show has a chance of being successful in its own right. But there's definitely some things that need to be addressed and things that need to be fixed. But then, this is the first season of the show, so it needs time. And hopefully, as time goes on, the writers will address those issues and fix them. I sincerely hope. I can say for sure, I just saw this on Twitter a couple hours ago, that Charmed has been given a full season pickup. So I guess their ratings were decent enough that the CW is going to allow them an entire season's worth of episodes. So hopefully things will improve. We shall see. All right, well, that was my review. And we will see season 5 on Sunday, and we'll be back at you with another review. Hopefully the positiveness will continue. Cross fingers. I really do want to give the show a chance, but I will not hesitate to be critical where I feel it's due. All right, guys. I'll see you guys next week for another Charmed review. I may be reviewing some other things. I'm not sure. I still have to finish my Suits reviews. I got to go back and not necessarily rewatch, but reacquaint myself with the last 5 episodes of Suits so I can go back and review those. I might just review it all in one long video so I won't have to make 5 separate ones. But I will be coming back at you very soon. See you later, guys.